Ida for not telling my fiancé why I'm sterile. The first time my fiancé, Ethan, asked me why I didn't want to talk about children, I felt the same cold pressure in my chest that I always felt when anyone even brushed up against the subject. It was the kind of pressure that made your ribs feel too tight and the room feel too small. But he didn't know that. He just watched me with those calm, earnest eyes of his, waiting for an answer I could never give. I told him we'll talk about it later, and later became months, then years. The truth sat inside me like a sealed, rusted box. I am sterile. And the reason why is the part I swore I would never ever say out loud again. Everything was fine until 3 weeks ago, when his mother called me crying because Ethan had told her that something is wrong. He hadn't told her what, only that I shut down any time he brought up kids, and that he was starting to think I didn't trust him. I love him more than anyone I've ever met. He is the safest person in my life. The first person I ever believed would stay. But the reason I am sterile is tangled with the darkest part of my childhood, the part I built my entire adult life trying to escape. And I don't know if telling him will free me or destroy everything we have. Here's the full story. The secret I built my life around. Growing up, my house wasn't a home, it was a trap. My father was the kind of man who controlled everyone with silence, rage, or both. He isolated us from everyone. Family, neighbors, friends. And when my mother finally found the courage to leave, he turned all that control on me. I was 14 when he decided I wasn't behaving. He wanted a son, and he wanted perfection. Instead, he had me too soft, too emotional, too disobedient for his taste. The incident that led to my sterility wasn't an accident, but the courts ruled it as one. My father claimed he was teaching me a lesson when he slammed me onto the edge of a metal tool bench during one of his punishments. My internal injuries were severe. The doctors tried, but they couldn't undo what had been crushed. I spent almost a year recovering in silence, refusing to talk to investigators, terrified that if I did, my little sister would be next. He was sentenced to less than 2 years. My sister and I went into foster care, and I promised myself I would never ever let my trauma infect the rest of my life, which meant no relationships that got too deep, and no discussions about kids, no vulnerability. No past. Then I met Ethan. Ethan, who broke every rule I made. He was the first person I ever dated who wasn't intense, intimidating, or emotionally chaotic. He was gentle, warm, steady, the kind of person you realize you can trust before you even mean to. Before I knew it, we had built a life together. I moved into his apartment. He learned how I like my tea. I learned when he needed space. We created a little world where I actually felt safe. But safety has a price. When someone is good to you, they get close enough to see the things you've tried to bury. The first time he asked about kids, I told him I wasn't sure. The second time, I told him maybe someday. By the fourth time, my hands were shaking so badly I spilled my drink. He never pushed, but I knew he was waiting. So when he proposed 9 months ago, I said yes, knowing full well that I had a secret big enough to shatter us. The breaking point. 3 weeks ago, he came home with a wrapped box in his hands. I thought it was a necklace, a sweater, something simple. Instead, when I opened it, I saw a tiny, whereupon baby hat with a note, just imagining our future. I froze so hard I nearly fainted. When he saw my face, he looked scared. Did I cross a line? He asked softly. I didn't answer. I couldn't even breathe. He asked if I wanted kids. I shook my head. He asked why. I stayed silent. He asked if something happened to me, and I, coward that I am, said, "Can we talk later?" He left the room, but later never came because I kept avoiding him, dodging every attempt he made. And then he told his mother he thought I didn't trust him. Now he sleeps on the couch, not angrily, just defeated. And I can't escape the thought, maybe I am the bad guy here. The confrontation I couldn't avoid. Last night, Ethan knocked on the bedroom door before entering. Like the space belonged to a stranger now. He sat on the edge of the bed and quietly said, "Do you want to marry me?" "Yes," I said immediately. He nodded, staring at the floor. "Then you have to talk to me. Whatever it is, I can handle it. But I can't handle being shut out of my own life, my own future." He looked so tired. I knew I couldn't marry him while holding a secret that would shape our future profoundly. But I also didn't want him to look at me with pity, the thing I fear more than anything. So I said, "I can't have kids." He looked startled, but not horrified, not disgusted, just surprised. He took my hand. "That's okay," he said. "So many families are built in different ways. Adoption, fostering. No, my voice broke. I mean, I can't have kids because of something that happened to me growing up. His hand froze. His expression changed in a way I couldn't read. Tell me what happened, he said. And now I'm here, the words trembling on my tongue, terrified that once I open that old rusted box, everything will fall out and ruin the life I built. So Ida, for not telling him sooner, for hiding something so huge out of shame and fear, for protecting myself even when it hurt him, or am I allowed to keep my darkest trauma private even from the person I love? Ethan didn't push. He didn't raise his voice, didn't demand an explanation, didn't grab my shoulders or try to hug me. He just sat there, completely still, like one wrong move might send me running. I hated that. I hated that I was making him feel like he needed to tiptoe around me. But I hated even more the heavy, metallic taste of panic rising in my throat. His voice was barely above a whisper when he repeated, "Tell me what happened." For a moment, the room felt too bright, too clean, too peaceful for the kind of story I was about to tell. The problem was I had never spoken the truth out loud. Not to the police, not to social workers, not to therapists, not to my foster parents, not to partners before Ethan, not to anyone. The only place the truth ever existed was in my memories and in the medical records I pretended I never saw. So when I opened my mouth, the words didn't come out. Not immediately, not fully formed. "I can't," I whispered. He nodded slowly. "Okay, then I'll wait. But you should know something." He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I don't need to know everything. I don't need the painful details. I just need to know enough to understand you. Enough so you don't carry all of it alone." That should have made it easier. It didn't. It only made the guilt sharper. I stared at the wall, pressing my nails into my palms until the sting grounded me. "It was my father," I finally said. And Ethan inhaled sharply, his first real reaction. I continued, forcing each word out like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "He was the kind of man people pretend doesn't exist. Controlling, violent. My mother left him, so he turned everything on me. And one day, when I was 14, I couldn't finish the sentence. The memories were too jagged, too vivid." Ethan didn't interrupt. Not once. He shoved me hard into the corner of his workbench, on purpose. The metal edge hit me exactly the wrong way. The internal damage was permanent. Ethan's jaw clenched. His hands were trembling in his lap, but he wasn't looking at me like I was broken. He was looking at me like he was trying to absorb the pain for me. I looked away. I didn't tell the doctors what really happened. I said I slipped, because he told me if I said anything, he'd go after my sister. And I believed him. "You were a kid," he said softly. "That doesn't matter." My voice cracked. "I carried it, all of it, 4 years. I still do." He exhaled slowly, like he needed a moment to compose himself. Then he reached for my hand again, but gently, letting me pull away if I wanted. I didn't. The touch didn't hurt. It didn't suffocate me. It was grounding. "Thank you for telling me," he said. "I know what it cost you." I swallowed hard. "Now do you understand why I never brought up kids?" He nodded. "Of course I do. I can't believe you lived with that alone for so long." But then his expression changed, subtle but unmistakable. A shadow crossed his face. A question he didn't want to ask but had to. "Why didn't you tell me earlier? Before we moved in? Before we got engaged? Before all of this?" There it was, the question that split me open. "I didn't want you to pity me," I said, "or treat me like I was fragile, or feel trapped in a relationship with someone who couldn't give you what you might want." His eyes softened, but he didn't let me escape with that answer. "You think so little of me?" His voice wasn't angry, just wounded. "No," I whispered. "I think little of myself." The silence that followed was so thick it felt like the air had weight. He finally spoke, his tone measured. "I'm not leaving you. Not because of this. Not because of anything your father did." My breath hitched. "But," he added gently, "I need honesty. I need partnership. Marriage means no huge secrets. Not when they shape our whole future." I closed my eyes. I know. That's why I'm telling you now. What does this mean for us?" he asked. His voice wasn't desperate, just unsure, careful. I forced myself to look at him. "It means I can't have biological children, ever. And it means talking about kids any kind hurts more than I can explain." He nodded, absorbing that. "Do you want kids at all?" he asked quietly. And for the first time in my life, I realized I didn't have an answer. Not one that made sense. Not one that wasn't shaped by trauma. "I don't know," I admitted. "I've spent my whole life avoiding the question, because whenever I thought about it, all I could see was my father's face." Ethan exhaled shakily. "Okay," he said. Then we figure it out together, slowly, carefully, at your pace. I felt something warm in my chest, something I hadn't felt in years. Hope, maybe even relief. But right as I started to breathe easier, Ethan added, I love you. But this can't happen again. No more secrets this big. If we're going to build a life together, I need to be part of the hard things too. I nodded. I know. And I'm sorry. I really am. He brushed his thumb across my knuckles. I'm not asking for perfection. Just trust. Trust, the one thing I had never learned to give without fear. I squeezed his hand. I'm trying. He leaned forward and kissed my forehead, the softest, most careful touch in the world. I know, he whispered, and that's enough for now. For days after our conversation, our home felt quieter, not cold, just heavy. Like every word between us carried the weight of what I had confessed. Ethan wasn't distant. If anything, he was gentler, more patient, more present, but I could tell he was thinking hard about our future, about what my secret meant for the life we had imagined. One evening, a week later, he came home early from work. He found me on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the fading skyline. Can I sit? He asked softly. I nodded, and he sank onto the chair beside me. For a moment, we watched the sky change colors, from gold to purple to deepening blue. Then he spoke. I've been doing a lot of thinking, he said, folding his hands in his lap. Not about leaving you, so don't panic. My breath loosened. But about what our future looks like, what we look like. He took a slow, steady breath before continuing. I realized something. I don't want kids just to have many versions of myself. I wanted them because I thought they were a natural part of life, what you're supposed to do after getting married. But when I imagined a future without any kids at all, it didn't scare me. I turned to him, surprised. It didn't? I whispered. He shook his head with a small smile. What scared me was imagining a future without you. Something inside me cracked open, in the best possible way. He reached for my hand, his voice steady. I don't care how we build a life together. Biological kids, adopted kids, no kids. It doesn't matter, but I want us to make that choice together without fear, without pressure, without ghosts from your past controlling it. My eyes burned with tears I didn't try to hide. And I don't need your trauma to be explained or justified, he added. I just need you. Whole or healing, scared or brave, just you. I didn't know what to say. Words felt too small for what he was giving me. But then he gently squeezed my fingers. There's one more thing. I blinked. I booked us an appointment, he said, carefully watching my reaction. Not with a fertility doctor, with a therapist. Someone who specializes in trauma. For you, for us, for whatever comes next. My heart tightened, not in panic, but in something like relief. You don't have to go, he added quickly. But I want to support you in a way that actually helps you heal. Not just comfort you when it hurts. I swallowed hard, then nodded. Okay, I whispered. I'll go. I want to try. He let out a breath like he'd been holding it for days. His smile, soft and proud, was the warmest thing I'd ever seen. We sat there in the twilight, holding hands as the first stars appeared. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a damaged person pretending to be whole. I felt safe. And not because someone protected me, but because someone saw all of me and didn't run. When we finally stood to go inside, Ethan wrapped his arms around me and pressed his forehead to mine. We're going to be okay, he whispered. And for the first time in a long time, I believed him, because the past didn't vanish, and the pain didn't magically disappear. But I wasn't carrying it alone anymore, and that, finally, was enough. The end.